if you want to level up your database skills and ready yourself for the job market, then buckle your seatbelt and relax, because at Tech Remedia, we simplify and break down the hard concepts and give you tips and tricks to move you from a novice to an expert in database management systems like Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle Database, and MySQL, and even Postgres. Welcome to today's advanced Microsoft SQL Server tutorial, where we're going to be covering advanced functions like the case function. We're going to be covering convert, cast, Nullif, and even the SQL Server temp table. So all that and much more right here. So let's go ahead and start with our case statement. So, and in our, we begin from the syntax first of all. So the syntax for the case statement in Microsoft SQL Server is select case, and then here we have the input expression. Input expression in most cases will be a table column, right? Then we have the conditions plus the corresponding statements. So each condition with a corresponding statement, right? So until the n number of conditions that you can include in a case statement. Then you have the last and as keyword, which is now it's like the alias that you want to give that column. Then of course the select has to be from a table, from a particular table. So let's go ahead and do one practical example using our normal Northwind database. Okay, so let's use maybe the orders table or maybe other details. Let's see. Okay, I can use this last column, assuming that when the column reads 0, it means discontinued. When it reads 1, okay, 0 not discontinued, 1 discontinued. Like 1 means true, 0 means false. So let's go ahead and write a case statement for this particular column. So we'll select several columns from this table, products, right? Let's comment this one. You can say select product name, and say supply ID. Can also select a category. Can also say unit price. And units in stock. So ensure you select the correct database here so that you don't get those errors, not the database. Okay. So we need to do a join so that we can be able to get these two columns, that we get the names, the category name and the supplier name. So what we'll do is from dbo products dot join suppliers on the products. You can call it PR suppliers SP. So on PR dot supply ID equals to SP dot supply ID. Add another inner join categories. Set on. So categories, you can call it CTR. So on here, that category ID equals to CTR dot category ID. That now here you can qualify these names and have them as SP dot supply ID and CTR dot category ID. Right. So that's our inner join. We need to add our last column here, which is discontinued. So, comma, discontinued. And this last column is now where we're going to put our case, right? So this is now where we need to convert these numeric numbers into text. So what we're going to do is write case. So case because select case discontinued. Say when 0, then we put a string here. 0 means false, so means the product is not discontinued. So we say not discontinued. And we say again when 1, then discontinued. We say and as discontinued. Then the rest of the query continues from dbo products PR inner join suppliers SP on supply ID, inner join categories on category ID. So this one now should be able to give us a expected result. So let's go ahead and click the execute, and here we have our result. So we now cannot see the previous numbers that we saw, like a 0 and a 1. So whenever there is a 0, it is not discontinued. Whenever there is a 1, it means true, discontinued. So here is our result right there. So guys, that's how we use the case select case statement. So next, let's look at the ISNULL statement, a function I mean. So the ISNULL function has the expression part and then the replacement. So the expression part is what is usually evaluated, and if it is returns a null value, then the replacement is usually what it is returned. That is, if the expression is null, then this is what will be displayed. Okay. But if it's not null, then the value that comes from the expression is what will be displayed. So let's look at one example here. So let's go ahead and comment this one. So for instance, if we go to our we'll go to our customers table. We just select our top 1,000 rows. So for instance, if you look at the region column, okay. Look at the region column, we have so many null values. Okay, let's try and look at the suppliers. Maybe I can have a mix up. Maybe let's look at the facts column. So there are null values and also there are values that have data. So what we do now is let's do a select statement. Go back to our function. Let's do this first. Select facts from suppliers. So let's have the three columns: company name, a city, and facts. So if we go ahead and execute this one by pressing F5 or clicking this button here, we get all the null values. But now if we want to replace these null values with a particular constant facts number, they can come here to the column and say is null, like that. We put a column name in and put a comma. So if the fax name fax returns null, then we want to put a particular number here. So you can put a string and say and call it 001 and put 001 dash 001. We can have that as the default and remove that one. So let's go ahead and execute our query, and you can see all the null values have been replaced with our default fax number, so that now there are no null values in this column. Okay, so you can also give it an alias here as fax number. You can either enclose it with these square brackets. Execute, so we have it there. That's how we use the ISNULL function within a Microsoft SQL Server. Function we're going to look at is a stored procedure that is used to describe the database table. If you wanna see how your table is defined, then use the stored procedure sp_help. So the syntax is exec or execute sp_help, then you put your table name. So for instance, if we can do this for one of our tables like suppliers, just drag and drop it there. Let's execute, and there you have it. So you have all the columns and how they are defined in the table. Supply ID is an integer, string, or like that, the length, all other details. So that's how you can describe your database, I mean your table, to get how it is defined. Okay, so next let's look at the Nullif expression. So the Nullif function usually returns compares two expressions or two values, the first value and the second, or the first expression and the second expression. If they are equal, it returns a null. It returns null. If they are different, then it returns the first expression or the first value, that is. So let's go ahead and look at an example. Comment this one first of all. So for instance, let's compare, can do a select, select country from customers. I can also select country, suppliers. We have two data sets here, so let's just do a count. Select country and do select count country. We can do a distinct so that we get only the number of countries within the customers. So let's also do the same for the suppliers. Count distinct. If we select the bold, we get 21 and 16, meaning these values are not the same. So if we do our null if for these two, okay, since they are not equal, then ideally you should return the first value. So let's do this. Select null if, then into brackets, let's just copy first expression. I'll put it into brackets. Then we also copy the second. If we executed this, let's just execute all the three. So we said if the null if the expression is both the expressions are not the same, then it returns the first expression. So the first expression is 21. The result of the first expression is 21. So see we comment this one. execute only this one, then you get 21. That means this first expression is returning 21 as the value, right? Otherwise, it would have returned a null value if the two values were the same. Okay. Right, so that's how we use the nullif expression statement in Microsoft SQL. So let's look at the Coalesce function in Microsoft SQL Server. So this function evaluates all the arguments within the brackets and returns the first value that is a non-null function. That is the first value that is not null, right? So let's go ahead and look at this an example. Let's comment that one. So for instance, if we go to supplier, so just select this, select so what we'll do, let's just do some here. Move this. Let's have a couple of functions within. Let's have a couple of functions within these brackets. You can have select. Let's first do a select here. So where supply ID is array, so you can say select x from files where supplier ID equals to 3. You can have that. That is the first function. So supply ID 3 is going to return number, that one. So let's go ahead and do for 4. ID is equals to 4. And the third one where ID is 5. Let's see. That is a null. So let's do 2 also, so that we see null value. Let's also do 2. Here we do the bracket. Go for 2. So if you execute this one, then you expect it to, and the facts is not null. The first null. You can also add another one at the end, so that 7 is also not null. So let's go ahead and execute and see where what values we're going to get. So 5. So again, you see we get the value, the first null value, which is this one. Okay. So that's how we use the Coalesce function within Microsoft SQL. Next, let's look at how we you can use the temp tables in Microsoft SQL Server. A temp table is basically a temporary table. It is created in our database. And usually each temp table is given a unique identifier, which is a number with the DBMS to be able to identify each temporary table. Let's go ahead and do an example so that we see how it works. For instance, if we are doing a query on our products, you can do a query. So you can say select, okay, let's do product name. In our query, select a product name. Quantity per unit, discontinued. We can say, we can just select all the products that are being discontinued. So we are discontinued is equals to 1. So this should return all the products that have been discontinued. Let's execute. Okay. So these are the products that have been discontinued. They are 18 number. So what we can do now is to take these data set and store it in a temporary table. Let's just pick this one here. So what we need now is to convert this data set to a temporary table. Okay. So we selected the first the select list here into. So now here we have the word into, then the name, the temporary table name, which we put start with a hash and say hash discontinued products. Okay. Into that, and from this, when we are conditions like that, let's go ahead and execute. It was effective. Let's go ahead and check if we have hash discontinued products. So all temporary tables, they are begin with the hash symbol. Okay. So we go to TempDB, then under temporary tables, we find our temporary table here. So a temporary table, then we can do a select. If we expand this one a bit, then we find a unique, which is 8. So a temp table, you can still do a select statement like other, like the normal table. Okay. So for instance, you can this one. Let's select all from hash and discontinued. Okay. So of course you have to make sure you've selected now the temp DB, because the DB becomes different from the original one. All temporary databases, all temporary tables are stored in the temp DB database. So you have to make sure you've selected that one, and now we get the same results here. So that's basically how we use the temp table within Microsoft SQL. So if we uncommented this one, so let's see how we use the select into create new normal tables, not temporary tables, but normal tables. So if we remove this hash symbol here, that means we create you'll be able to create a new table and not a temporary table. Let's comment this one. So if we select all these columns, E2 discount products. Okay, so if we select Northern database, they should create a new table named discontinued products within our Northwind database. Okay, and insert all these records there. Let's go ahead and execute this one. It was affected. So now what we do is go to our Northwind database and check, maybe let's refresh. And we find our table here, discontinued products. So we go ahead again and comment this one and remove the hash symbol. Okay, and then we can go ahead and execute. So we get the same results. So this one is a normal table, and you can even use it to create views and other things. Okay. So that's how we use the select into to create new tables from a result set, right? Hope so far you're getting a good value from this tutorial. And if you're really getting value for watching this video, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, and let's continue together. Next, let's look at the cast function. Cast function mainly is used for explicitly converting columns or values to other data types. So from one data type to another. So for instance, if you can do, let's do one here. Select orders. You can say you can get this date here. But rather, let's do this. Select from orders where 10 to 48. Let's comment this one. Orders. Order ID. The order ID is equals to this number. So what are we selecting? Let us select order date. Right. So if we execute this one, we get our date here. Okay. Let's try and cast this date from maybe convert it to a different type. So we can say select cast. There's date. I'll close that. If you execute, you see a value has been cast from date time. First one is date time, as you can see, to a date value so that the time part is truncated and it's removed. If you put it maybe var execute, we get a text, a string value of that date. So July 4th, 1996, 12 a.m. So this is a full date with a date and time. Okay, so that's how you can convert from different data types to other data types explicitly, right? You can as well use the try-cast function. This one works better than cast. Cast sometimes returns errors whenever it's not able to convert values. For example, we try convert to integer, that one returns 5. Okay, just did a conversion, but whenever we use a cast only, let's see, the same. Let's try a different one. Add it to something like decimal. Okay. You can use either, but there are times that cast cannot act and it returns error that try cast can will always be able to work, and if it's not able to convert, it returns a null value. That's how we use the cast and try cast functions. And you can use either depending on whatever you're doing. So next, let's look at the convert. The convert works almost the same way as the cast function. So let's go ahead and look at how it works. So it starts with the first parameter, which is a data type. You can specify the length for the data type, and also then followed by the expression. The expression is what you're converting. Let's go ahead and do an example. For instance, if we say declare at value as int, okay, as float, then we set at value to 5, something like that. Then say convert to integer at value convert int comma then the value whatever you want to convert. So select. So if we execute, then we find it converts the decimal, the float to an integer. So basically works almost the same as the cast function. So you can still use it to convert the time. Say date time some date. Yeah. So let's convert this to date. So again, it does the same thing as the cast function. It removes the time part of it and returns only the date part of it. So that's how basically we use the convert function in Microsoft SQL Server. So next, let's look at the insert into select function in Microsoft SQL Server. So this basically gets data from one table to another. Basically used to copy data between two tables. So insert into, we have the destination table and then the columns that you want to copy. Then, the columns that you want to copy data into in the destination table. And select gets the columns that you want to copy data from. Ideally, these two columns should match in terms of the data types so that there's no conflict. So let's go ahead and do an example. Example, we can say insert into, let's say, customers. Let's say company name. Let's say contact title, contact name. Let's say city. Country. Maybe you can leave it there. For us to be able to identify the new records, we'll check those records that don't have address. So let's also remove the country, contact name. Let's move the contact title so that we don't have contact. So that's how we'll be able to identify within customers the new records that we've added. So they only have 3 columns, right? So insert into, and let's select from suppliers what we want to insert here. So ideally this means we want to from suppliers and put a condition. So where supplier ID, let's see if we check here. And put a condition so that we make all the suppliers, we make them customers. So yeah, so all the suppliers, maybe say, let's make them customer, where country is equals to USA. A country. So if you executed this one, you should be able to insert new record customers table. Right. So we have right, we need to insert now the customer ID. So we add that. Yeah. The customer ID. So the supplier ID will be the customer ID in our case. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute. Company name, we need the company name. So these are constants that have been put in the database. You cannot insert null values in some columns, so we need to add from suppliers. We add the company name. Let's execute. Customer ID, city. Number of columns have to match. And have to name customers. Let's go to customers. So the number of columns and the data types have to match in both. The rows are affected. So this means we should have a new records in the customers table. So we go ahead and select top 1000 rows. You should be able to get records that don't have this region. Once a new record from supply. Okay. Right, so that's how we use that kind of function, insert into select function within Microsoft SQL Server. So this marks the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching up to this point. And if you are new to this channel, again, please make sure you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button and also like this video. Leave a comment below. Let us know about this video, and also share with the other platforms or people who might be interested in learning SQL. And in most cases, we cover all the DBMS from Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle Database, PostgreSQL, and even MySQL. And let's meet in the next video.